This conference will now be recorded.
You got 1 minute. There's not going to be any tardiness in my first meeting. I'm gonna look for the shape. We have a flag. We have a flag. Right there. Colorado flag. All right. 6 o'clock.
Hey, you got a hand.
I'm getting ready. Don't ever want to give me a down one. That's the first time I've ever owed one in my life or had one in my hand. So you have anything heavy? Welcome, everyone. I'd like to get the meeting for the North Front Range Transportation Air Quality Planning Council meeting started today. Please rise before we start and let's do the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. And if there's any heckling on my first meeting tonight, I will gavel you and call to order. Especially in the back of the room. Sure. Yeah, I just got to start strong. All right. Call the meeting to order. Pledge. Number 2 is public comment. Is there anybody in the room or online that needs to have public comment? Keep comments to 2 minutes. Going once. Everybody online raising their hand over there? Going twice. All right, so moving on. Approval of the minutes from last month. Can I get a motion? Second. Got a first from Commissioner Stevens and a second from Commissioner James. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, I guess I should ask? I'm gonna start asking, is there any opposed, then we'll just go. Number 4, air pollution control division. I'm gonna have to start wearing glasses. You guys are gonna start putting my agenda a little bit bigger. Air pollution control division, written, page 15. North Front Range Air Quality Program updates. Dina, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good evening. All right. Dina Voitak here on behalf of Two Roads Environmental, providing a kind of a run through of the monthly report of December air quality activities that I shared in a memo in your packet. As a reminder, while I am a RAC board member, I'm here today as the North Front Range NPO's consultant. Tonight, the information in your packet there's a lot of it. And so tonight, staff asked me to kind of focus in on a couple of different topics. So I'm going to spend more time on the PM 2.5 National Ambient Air Quality Standards, and then the potential future mobile sources emission targets or caps. However, if there's any questions on anything else in the report, please feel free to ask. So specific to PM 2.5, and that's based on an activity at the Air Quality Control Commission staff requested, the Air Pollution Control Division staff requested that the commission set a hearing in January, so next week, on a recommendation that they send to EPA regarding, whether or not Colorado is meeting a new lower standard. And so for reference, we talk a lot about ozone national ambient air quality standards. We haven't really talked about particulate matter before, or PM 2.5 in particular. For reference, PM 2.5 is particulate matter that is 2.5 microns or less. And so for reference, a human hair is 50 to 70 microns. And so we're talking about something really, really, really tiny small. EPA set a new lower standard in February of 2024. And they set this new lower standard at an annual 9 micrograms per cubic meter on a 24-hour basis, which is down from 12 micrograms per cubic meter. So this set into motion a process involving identifying areas meeting and not meeting that standard, and then related state implementation planning requirements for areas that aren't meeting the standard. Agency recommendations on areas meeting that standard. So the state must submit a recommendation to EPA. Those are due to EPA in February, so really less than a month away. PM 2.5 is not just fine dust, but it's also more complex than that. It can be small droplets of liquid. It can be dry solid fragments and solid cores with liquid coatings. It can be directly emitted from an activity. It can also be, it can react in the atmosphere. So it's really complex. Sources of PM 2.5 emissions can come from industrial activities, transportation, and then there's natural sources like wildfires and dust events. So given that it's very small in diameter, it can go really deeply in our lungs and cause a multitude of respiratory impacts. The PM 2.5 NAAQS is different from the ozone NAAQS, really in timeline and form. So for reference, when we talk about ozone, we're usually talking about a 3-year average of the 4th highest daily 8-hour average, and we talk about it in terms of parts per billion. In PM 2.5, we're talking again about 3-year averages, but of the 98th percentile of a 24-hour annual value, blah, blah, blah. Just remember that it's different in terms of time frames and units. So it's not an easy comparison. You can't just assume that you look at the data the same exact way as you would for ozone in comparison to the standard. So again, the APCD, Air Pollution Control Division, is recommending that the commission in January adopt this recommendation to be sent to EPA, recommending that our entire state meets that new lower standard of 9 micrograms per cubic meter. So on page 2 of the report, it should be up on your screen. It is up on your screen right now. I've included a couple of graphics, and you'll see figure 2 and table 2 from the Air Pollution Control Division's technical support document. And so what it's important to note, so go back up to that, the graph, the color graph right there. What's really important to know is if you start looking at the 3-year averages, even before the standard came into play in 2024, you can see historically we've kind of hovered right around 9 and sometimes over that 9 micrograms per cubic meter. So even though this latest, most current 3-year average shows that we're just below it, excuse me, it's still something that we need to watch. Okay, so EPA will then act on whatever recommendation comes out of our commission and goes to EPA. And when they act, there's going to be more recent data on that. So while the division is making its recommendation on a 2021 through 2023 3-year time frame. When EPA takes a look at it and acts on it, it's likely going to have 24 data, perhaps 25 data, depending on when they finally act. And so again, even though we're making the recommendation that the entire area is attaining the standard, it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the outcome. So we will continue to watch PM monitored values over the years. So then if you scroll down to the next graphic, in table 2, you see that for the monitors that have been operating for 3 years or more, this identifies which monitors have seen the highest values. And so you see 3 monitors in Denver County. Sorry, got a cold fighting that. So 3 monitors in Denver County and 1 monitor in Weld County, and that's at the Greeley Hospital. So again, that's something we want to watch. If there was any, if the data was showing that it was above 9 for any one of those monitors, that would trigger a process for, re-evaluation of the data. So right now, all of this data includes data that may have been influenced by natural events, whether it's dust storms or wildfires. So there's an option, if the state so chose, to look at it to potentially exclude data that was unduly influenced by those natural events, and then re-examine what the 3-year average of the data would look like. If there were a non-attainment designation, they'd look at boundaries of a non-attainment area, and it would trigger SIP planning efforts out into the future. So again, all this means is we need to keep monitoring it. We need to understand what's contributing to the higher levels, and then take steps to lower man-made PM 2.5, especially where we see the higher PM 2.5 levels. So, do you have any questions on that, or do you want me to move into the second topic?
You have a question, Commissioner James?
What is the correlation to transportation?
It's a great question. So sources of PM 2.5, again, can come from industrial sources as well as transportation sources. So fuel combustion is a big one, whether it's at an industrial setting or a vehicle's exhaust. So it can be coming from those types of activities as well as others. So again, you're going to want to look at the monitors that are high, and you're going to want to start digging into what's contributing at those monitors in particular.
So there is an inventory per se of PM 2.5. They can tell you what source it came from. There's a source. They assign certain 2.5s to given sources.
Yes. So there's a national emissions inventory that's developed, and that's based on a number of national initiatives, but that's also informed by like reporting and permitting requirements here in Colorado. So we would be going and looking at that in terms of, what industrial commercial sources that may have been permitted would contribute it. But, then there's natural events and that kind of thing. So you're going to have to take some time to really understand what was going on the high days at the specific monitors in question. It is interesting that 2 of these monitors for Denver at I-25 and Globeville are right along major highways.
In Greeley, it's mounted about 20 foot from the incineration stacks ready for waste at the Greeley Hospital. So it's interesting where they mount these monitors as well.
That would be interesting in terms of why they cited it there, but I don't know that for sure, so I have to defer to your knowledge. Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't see you raise your hand.
Yeah, it's kind of following up on that line of questioning. If the site is determined to be out of compliance and it triggered this need for deeper evaluation, what entities or agencies
Oh, so the question, it was kind of hard to hear, but it sounds like the question is what entities or agencies would be responsible for digging into that?
Yeah, that's right. If one of these stations was to be non-compliant in the future, that process you described, what agencies would take care of it?
Okay, so you would be talking about the Air Pollution Control Division. It's possible you would look at the Regional Air Quality Council as the lead air planning agency for the area. So it's not just ozone, but it would be for a PM 2.5 SIP. And obviously they would be needing to work with the local governments involved.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question relates to Weld County and the Greeley Hospital. So it looks like, if I'm reading this right, from 2018 to present, we're actually improving. Got a 9.5, a 9.5, an 8.8, and an 8.1. What are we doing successfully to make that number go down?
As I understand it, there's a lot of improvement in terms of the vehicle fleets that have made improvements.
So all internal combustion engine related then?
That's a big part of it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Where can I access the data as far as the assignments of source?
So the data from these, are you looking for the data for these two graphics?
Well, I'm just curious as to where you say it was an improvement in fleets at the Greeley location. I'd like to see that. Where's that breakdown?
I don't know that I saw a breakdown. I saw it discussed in the Air Pollution Control Division's technical support document, and so I can make sure that I send along that link. That would be a good question that to pose at the Air Quality Control Commission, and so we can try to figure out if we can get anybody to ask that question or get the division to respond to it.
Paul,
I'm sorry, what was the question?
did you have a question?
No, we just lost audio there at the very end.
She's got real quiet.
It always does that after he talks.
Can't say anything on the chair.
Okay, so I have one more topic to discuss, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Dina.
All right. The other sensitive topic that staff wanted me to bring up is at the Regional Air Quality Council meetings, one of the control strategies that they have listed over time is the potential lowering or the setting, I guess, of mobile source emission caps. And so there's a history here I'm not going to go into, but Northern Range MPO staff routinely works to ensure that motor vehicle emission budgets are met for conformity purposes, and a conformity lapse jeopardizes federal highway funding for transportation projects, that kind of thing. Motor vehicle emission budgets are also hardwired into Colorado's own ozone SIPs, and so they're enforceable in a number of different ways. The lowering of those standards has been a sensitive issue, and it's been raised in previous ozone SIP efforts. At the December 18th RAC control strategy meeting, RAC staff shared some thoughts on a potential control strategy to reduce ozone levels tied to mobile source emissions. And they explained that they are envisioning setting future emission targets over time. Okay. I saw a question. So can folks hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. At that meeting, they shared their thoughts on what the control strategy might look like. So they've just had it out there as kind of a bullet, but they have not really described what it was until recently. They added a little bit of detail. They explained that they are envisioning setting future emission targets for mobile sources or mobile source emissions. So setting targets or caps over time that slowly kind of ratchet down over time for mobile sources, and perhaps broken down into different on-road and off-road classifications for measurement and comparison. Staff suggested that this could be accomplished via, an Air Quality Control Commission setting a resolution in the future to establish, benchmarks and reporting requirements. And if the benchmarks are not met, then there may be, either regulations or other kinds of incentives or efforts made to put the state back on track in terms of meeting those mobile source emission caps in the future. The RAC indicated that more detailed information on this strategy is coming soon, and more robust conversations are currently scheduled for April and May, but I have encouraged them to do something maybe a little bit sooner because there's a lot of question about this. So really what I want you to take home is this concept is related but very distinctly different from motor vehicle emission budgets and is not tied to conformity. So that's a really important point to keep in mind. So with that, are there any questions on anything that I've talked about or anything else that's in the report?
Comments, questions, issues, concerns? So I have a question. So one of the things that when I hear to this mobile source emissions and really look, because that goes a lot to vehicles again, and it goes towards maintenance and yard equipment that we've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years with the ZEB and LEB and whatever all that was back in the day. Tina, have they discussed that the majority of our disproportionately impacted communities and our environmental justice communities probably have the greater number of vehicles that might not be meeting these emissions, and if they lower these numbers for emissions, that it could directly impact those communities more than other communities?
They have not discussed that. Again, this is the most detail that we've been able to get out of them. And so I think that's a great point. I think those are some things that are going to really have to be considered, the impacts of which considered. And there's not a lot of time between now and, when we're acting on a SIP for this year that's going to happen in 2025. So I think those kinds of conversations, it's good to ask those questions wherever, whenever you can. But those conversations are, coming at a later date.
One thing I would just say towards that is I know Dr. Cog gives the rec some money specifically for that, for people who are low income, who can't fit when they fail the emissions test. And you only have to spend up to a certain amount to fix, but they're giving some money to be able to fix the emissions thing. And it's something that we could look at, if we have extra dollars, if we want to have a program like that, or get ready to have a program like that. I would just say that's one of the things that's being addressed, because I agree, it does have, if you have a regular car,
Well, and that, and I understand the concern of the initiative to help with air quality, but also if they keep lowering the standards and have options or punishments or carrots or sticks, whatever you want to call it. If they keep lowering that standard, then these folks can't keep the repairs. So the lower the standard, the more costly. You can't really get to those repairs, no matter if they have the money or not. So those are some of the things that some of these vehicles, I mean, they barely get by, and then they go in there, and if they lower these standards and they start taking this over time and trigger points, it's going to drastically affect the ability for our labor forces. So this not only is a individual, but it's a business concern, it's a Northern Colorado community concern, and I don't know, you're our rep, I would recommend that we articulate that very clearly from a Northern Colorado perspective. Anything else?
Wasn't there a bill introduced last year? Or it's called Senate Bill 95, which was run by Will Kennedy. If that's a yes.
You want me to go
Yes,
on about my
absolutely.
unbelievable frustration about how RAC somehow killed the bill to do exactly what they're doing now?
Okay. That's my personal opinion.
All right, we're gonna move on from that personal opinion. Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. All right, next on the agenda is item 6, Regional Air Quality Council RAC. Commissioner.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a handout of what happened. I mean, it's pretty hard to, as you can tell, in both the handout and then some of Dina's, so we've had 2 meetings since the last, NPO meeting. We had the December meeting, we had the January meeting. So you can kind of see that we're really discussing these different, strategies for, reducing ozone, and Dina, touched on the mobile source emissions, which is a possibility. There's obviously other ways, the landscape equipment we've been doing all along. One of the things that we talked about in the January meeting, and almost the whole January meeting was exclusively about the blowdown, so oil and gas, the venting and blowdown, as a strategy to reduce ozone, ground level ozone. And I will say there's, a lot of controversy about this one, because the Air Quality Commission feels like they have programs in place. They have this intensity program that they're starting, that they feel like there would be some redundancy with what the RAC is suggesting. So they wrote a memo saying, I don't know that we need this blowdown as a strategy. And so that conversation, a meeting that was supposed to be an hour and a half, was about 2.5 hours, and no resolution came of it. So I think that there's still more questions on, is this a strategy that the RAC wants to include when they forward the strategies in July and August to the AQCC. So it's all fairly technical stuff. I mean, Dina's, like I said, Dina's reports, I think, really talk about it. But, we're clearly, you can see the strategies that are being considered. There's some new strategies that are being considered, and I'm not sure what comes out on top as far as strategies being considered. But I'm happy to bring back whatever you want. And certainly, Johnny, I'm happy to bring back the question you asked about the mobile source emissions, and the idea that people who are lower income can't afford to fix their cars.
And as we keep lowering the emissions, it's going to do.
Right, and I mean, that's EPA, right? I mean, like, I agree that it gets worse as those numbers get lowered. I don't know what's coming in the future with EPA, so I don't know if those numbers will be lowered. I don't know.
I would say in the next 4 years, we probably wouldn't see it.
I would say that's probably right. And so, there's lots of that remains to be seen. But anyway, if anybody has any, and I go to the RAC meetings, but honestly, I'm unable to go to the control strategy meetings. I mean, I could spend there's 2 or 3 different control. I mean, I could spend 20 hours a month just on air quality through the RAC. I don't have time to go to the control strategy meetings. They are open to the public, though. If other folks want to go to those, I have time to go to the RAC meetings.
So I think you answered my question. On the strategy, it says yes, board only, and then it says yes, CSC. So the CSC is the control.
And then there's more than one control strategy now, because there's one for, I think there's one specific for,
So who sits on this control strategy?
most members of the RAC board.
everyone elected on there?
Is everyone an elected official?
Yeah.
So, but all the control strategy options are brought forward to the board. So, if people want to attend, that's great. I don't know that we'll get anywhere with the blowdowns because there's so much there seems to be some controversy about not. I think that it is an effective strategy, but I think that it might be cost prohibitive, and the air quality commissioner the strategy statement. So very technical meetings.
Any questions, concerns, comments?
No,
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes.
Thank you. Next one, item 7. Go ahead. Can't hear me? That's weird.
It's
I don't think anybody's ever said that.
We've seen some chats that the audio is really quiet. Sounds like it's so you saw Aaron just tried to adjust the location of owls to see if we could improve that audio quality. I think that's probably kind of the limit of what we can do. You can see there
you can try it.
settings as
I
well.
think.
So hopefully moving the owls a little bit closer, and if we could just try and speak loudly.
I can try that one.
Please, let me know if I'm not loud enough. All right, thank you, Commissioner.
I'm
Number
not sure what
7,
else to do.
Matt meeting.
Yeah, I was like,
We
only
have
thing I can
next
try is
is
switching it to that one.
And we're not scheduled to meet till February 27th. I do want to remind people there are those
Yeah, it
grant
should
dollars
pull up
that are
there.
available. We talked about them in our last meeting, the TMO meeting, but the deadline for those
Try
is
that one.
February 25th. They're very similar requirements to CMAQ. There is a DI portion to the application, so disproportionately impacted communities. You can get up to $17 million. The minimum ask is $500,000. So just a reminder for folks that this is an additional pot of money to look at for any multimodal kind of projects that you have in the works.
Like a TMO?
Huh? The TMO is not, itself can't apply because I don't think they're also eligible for CMAQ. But somebody could do a project on that corridor that would benefit the TMO, and I'm sure the TMO would be very happy about that.
Any questions? I'm not gonna ask about concerns or issues anymore. Learned my lesson in my first meeting. Be careful what you ask for. Next on the item, we're gonna move to is item 8, reports from chair. I have no report except for I do have a request, or I will strong arm you into a position. We need a replacement on the finance committee.
It's fun.
Commissioner Stevens has now stepped into the chair position, which vacated her position, and we have a nominee. All in favor? Yay! Yeah, I don't think no one's gonna argue with you. John Mello has stepped up to the finance committee, and you sat on it anyway, so you came to all the meetings, so I think you'll be a great fit. And I'm sure they'll go a lot smoother now that I'm not running them. Number 9, executive director's report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of updates. First, on an item that's near and dear to a lot of people's heart on this council, the Greeley Merge project. We've been following the 1601 process through, and it went to Transportation Commission in December and was approved by the Transportation Commission on the consent agenda. So it's a
If I wasn't chair, I'd do my happy dance. Control.
Also, I wanted to let the council know, last month you all approved UPWP budget amendment, and it covered a number of things. One of them was to change some formatting on the UPWP related to the way that we were showing our complete streets allocation. That was a request that came from FHWA, and so in the intervening time, that's been submitted to FHWA, and they have approved that change. So I just wanted to pass along that your amendment got us in compliance with the conditions that FHWA had asked of us on that. Another item that has been something we've been following for a number of months, back in September, I co-signed under your authority, along with all of a bunch of other executive directors that were part of the Intermountain West NPOs, a letter to EPA that talked about our concerns about the situation with ozone in the Intermountain West region. The fact that despite lowering the precursors going into the natural environment, we're not continuing to see the same reductions in the level of ozone that we would expect to see from the modeling. We did receive a response from EPA. It was from the Deputy Administrator, Assistant Administrator, Joseph Goffman, came to us as well as all the other signatory NPOs. They acknowledged our concerns, and then talked in their letter about the different things that they're studying right now that are roughly aligned with the kinds of questions that we're asking. They're largely focused on improving their inventories and modeling and studying wildfire emissions, which are all related to the ozone issue. They didn't, as a part of that, extend any direct invitations to the NPOs to engage in more discussion about it. The letter is pretty fresh. It came over the holidays. I opened it last week. And so as an Intermountain West working group, we haven't had a chance to kind of debrief that yet and talk about next steps. But wanted to let you know that we had received the letter, and I anticipate we'll probably get together and talk to the other NPOs between now and the next meeting. So I'll continue to check in with you as that evolves. And then finally, I'll wrap up with another good news item, which is that we do have a transportation commissioner now. The official swearing in, I believe, is supposed to take place next week, but Cecil Gutierrez has been selected as the next transportation commissioner for our region. He just visited with us last month, so you all know him, as well as from his extensive time in the region, so that'll be great to have him on board. I extended an invitation for him to come tonight, but it was really short notice. He wasn't able to make it. He is going to be at a coordination meeting with us next week that we hold between our staff representatives and the Transportation Commissioner before they go into their Transportation Commission meeting. So I expect you'll start seeing him at our NPO council meetings.
And he did reach out to me probably only because of the seat I sit in, not because of who I am, but I've known him for a long time. But we're going to try to get together over the next couple of weeks and talk a little bit, and he wants to pick my brain. So I think it's a good thing. Cecil's been involved in Northern Colorado for a long time. Very rational, common sense thinker. So I think he'll be really supportive. One of the things that I want to make sure is he understands that, the last commissioner had a different opinion of what his role was. So we really need to educate him a little bit from our end of what our expectation is of North Front Range and what we expect. Because he does sit on the council, so.
This is Will Karsnick. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the commissioner's name. Do you mind repeating that?
Yeah, it's Cecil Gutierrez.
Oh, Cecil. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. A long time Loveland council, mayor.
You knew him as mayor or your band teacher, one of the two.
It goes way back. Yeah, band teacher goes way back too far. And I would say that the grants for rural grants came out. There should be some press releases coming out Friday. Can't tell you what's on it or who's on it or where it's at, but I would just say watch your press releases from your senators and your congressional members.
That's it for me. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Number 10 is Finance Committee. It's written, page 22. 11, TAC written, page 23. And Mobility written, it's a handout. All that, we're going to move to the consent agenda. And first I'd ask is, Is there anybody that would like to pull one of the items? All right, then I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
And a first from Councilmember from Fort Collins and a second from Commissioner Teresia Canonico.
There you go.
You got the last name. I'm impressed.
It's a little Italian. And second from Commissioner from Weld Scott. So any discussion? All in favor, please by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Carries. All right. Moving to action items. Off-cycle December 2024 TIP Amendment Resolution 2502. Jonathan.
Yes.
You're up. Oh, you're online.
Yeah, sorry. Recovering from an illness.
I'm glad you're online.
Right. So the off-cycle December 2024 TIP amendment includes the addition of the CDOT Region 4 new project, which is titled US 287 Median Safety Berthed South. This project includes federal, for the funding for federal DIS, there is $2,036,250 in FY25. For federal HTIP funding, there is $239,005 in FY26 and $484,835 in FY27. As for state FASTER funding, there is $300,000 in FY25 and $356,160 in FY26. So the project installs concrete barriers in the median of US 287 to prevent vehicles from crossing over and causing head-on collisions. Approximately 3 miles of this project are located in the NFRMPO region, which extends from the Boulder County line up to around Dry Creek in Berthed South. The 30-day public comment period opened on December 11th and will close on January 10th. The approval of the amendment is contingent on there being no public comments by the end of tomorrow. An equity analysis was conducted, and that can be found in the packet. NFRMPO staff noted no disadvantages and support adding the off-cycle December 2024 TIP amendment to the FY 2024 to 2027 TIP.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions? I'll be looking for a motion for resolution number 2025-02 of the North Front Range Transportation Air Quality Planning Council approving the off-cycle December 2024 amendment to the 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program TIP.
This is Will Carspec, so moved.
Second.
Got a first by Will and a second by Commissioner James. Any other discussion? All in favor with an aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving right on to item 16. 2021 North Front Range targets of safety performance measures.
Hi, I'm also online today.
Michaela. I was like, that looks like a unique Michaela. Go ahead, Michaela.
Yeah. Can we go ahead and start with the presentation? Thank you. So my name is Michaela Merrick. This is my first time presenting here at council, so it's great to join in even though it's online for tonight. So today we're going to be talking about targets for safety performance measures. We're looking at the time period from 2021 to 2025. Next slide, please. So before we jump in, I just want to acknowledge that there's no acceptable number of deaths or serious injuries on our roadway network. And, we strive to work towards eliminating deaths and serious injuries, here within the region. We state this in our regional transportation plan, and ultimately that is the goal. Next slide, please. So a little bit on the federal target setting requirements. So annually, targets are set by state DOTs and MPOs. Targets are based on a 5-year rolling average. So the first 3 years is actual data that we have. So in this case, it'll be 2021 to 2023 data. And then we use an estimate or an estimate for what we think will happen in 2024 and 2025 for these numbers. The targets presented today, they must be data driven. So the numbers that are presented, they are what they are. You know, we are going to look at some different options. We'll choose one or the other. Newly established targets must be incorporated into any update to the RTP or the TIP. And tonight, you know, we're going to discuss 2 different target setting options. We can either support CDOT statewide targets, or we can set our own regionally specific targets. Yeah, next slide. So up until, 2023 was the last year as a region that we have adopted the statewide targets. In February of 2024, our planning council approved a regional target instead of supporting the statewide target for the first ever time. And so really we're here to discuss, if our focus and prioritization on safety could better be reflected in setting a regional target again for 2025. Next slide. So first we're going to take a look at some of the previous CDOT statewide targets. So again, these are 5-year averages. They're created, again, using 2021 to 2023 actual crash data numbers and forecasted estimates for 2024 and 2025. So as you can see, really across all categories, CDOT at the statewide level, we're not heading in the right direction for fatalities, serious injuries, or non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Next slide, please. And then if we were to go with a regional target instead, we would use these numbers here in orange. So as a region, our fatalities are coming down. That number has gone down. However, our serious injuries have gone up, and our non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries have gone up as well. So compared to the state, we are improving when it comes to our fatalities, but in the other categories, we're kind of in the same boat as CDOT. However, these numbers do reflect really what is happening in our region, and we're able to influence, what is happening within our region if we do go with a regional target. Next slide. So we're going to break down first fatalities here in the region. So in the little bit darker orange, we've got actual crash data numbers for fatalities. We saw a big dip in 2019. Not really sure why, but then since then our numbers have been up again. We're not as high as we were, previously. The last year of data that we have access to is 2023, and that's where we saw 42 fatalities. Whereas like we had previous highs of 56 in 2017 or 49 in 2018. And then the last 2 bars there are estimates for 2024 and 2025. These estimates are created using a forecast equation based off of 10 previous years of data. So in 2024, it's projected with the data to have 35 fatalities and then 34 in 2025 for the region. Next slide. So this is looking at the same kind of graph instead for serious injuries here in the region. we were starting to see a decline from 2017 to 2020, and then after 2020, those numbers rose quite a bit. And you see in the last two bars there for 2024 and 2025, as of now, we are estimating, slight increases in those years. So really that is what the targets that are presented are based off of, since they do have to be data driven. Next slide. And then lastly, I've got a breakdown of our non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. We saw quite a dip from 2018 to 2020 compared to the rest of the years. We did see a spike again in 2023 with 47 serious injuries and fatalities. Despite this, based off the past few years of data, we're projecting in 2024 and 2025 for the number to come down from that a little bit. I think it's like 39 for both of those years is what's projected based off the forecast equation. Next slide, please. Okay, and then I wanted to put our two options here side by side. Again, these numbers unfortunately cannot be changed because they must be data driven. So it really just depends on, do we support the state target or do we support the regional target, And I do want to note that target is kind of an unfortunate term that we're required to use federally. Target is an amount not to be exceeded. We don't want to meet it or go above that number, of course. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Next slide, please. So a little bit on next steps after our discussion tonight. This will go to TAC for approval next week. And then in February, I will come back looking for approval and if we're going with a regional or a statewide target. And then targets are due to CDOT later in February. And that is all from me. I'd like to open this up for discussion and see if anyone has any thoughts on one option or the other.
So, are there any questions for Michaela? Start with Commissioner.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, Michaela. I'm wondering, in some of the years, there's some big differences in some of the years between both fatalities and serious injury. And can any of that be attributed to weather or other, is there other phenomenon going on? I mean, like 2017, 56 and 2019, 21 fatalities. That's a big gap. So, you know what? I mean, was there a bad weather event that year? I mean, do we know kind of why some of these numbers vary so much?
So I will say, just off the top of my head, I don't know exactly. I could go back and look at that. I do just understand that, historically, when you look at our, at least statewide crash data, you would expect there to be a lot more, serious injuries, fatalities during, more extreme weather events, but sometimes that doesn't always happen just because less people are out on the roads. So again, I could look into that if you're interested in knowing more, but I can't give you an exact answer right now, what that year-to-year difference is from the past.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It feels like sometimes it might be hard to predict if the numbers are vary that much, but then I don't want you to do extra work. So, I'm definitely supportive of the NPO, using its own numbers. I will, I mean, can you explain what the advantage in us doing that? I mean, I guess it's because we can, we can more precisely define what our numbers might be, and we can use dollars to address that. Is that our main reason for kind of doing it, not taking these state numbers?
So really, it's just it's kind of just the region's preference on what we want to do. So if we adopt our own regional target, we as an MPO are not at all penalized in any way if we don't, or if we like exceed the numbers that we approve. Um, and so it's really up to what we want to do. Um, we adopted our first regional target last year, so it's a little soon to kind of be seeing the results from that, since that went into or was approved February 2024. We don't even have our 2024 data yet that's finalized to even be using in these calculations yet, but it can really just be used as a guide, as a commitment as a region that, this is something that we're working on. And I think ultimately it comes down to um, either specific communities, working on this, or, what are we putting our funding towards, and like to call for projects and avenues such as that, really it's just to keep these targets in the back of our mind while we're making these other types of decisions like that.
Councilmember Jenkins?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, from a variability perspective, the CDOT numbers are based on much larger population size and therefore a larger sample size. So variability from year to year, just from a statistical perspective, it wouldn't be as great as the NPO, which has a much smaller population size and a smaller sample size and is subject to more variability. Just random numbers based on size. That being said, I mean, we know that there are active efforts, for example, in Fort Collins, identifying high-risk intersections. I know there's a new program now to give out automatic speeding tickets at certain intersections that are high-risk corridors. And so those are likely to have impacts on these kinds of numbers, I would think. So, I mean, from my perspective, despite the fact that there's going to be more variability, I like the local tracking because if we're just doing the state numbers, we're not going to really, unless we also track our local numbers in parallel, we're not going to know if we're having an impact or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to expand on that before private chair. So one of the things that I struggle with is we won't know if we hit our target for 2 more years. So we set targets, but we don't know how we did from year to year. And that's the struggle with setting targets, because our data, our crash data, I mean, we're projecting 24 and we're projecting 25 to get our targets, but we won't know what 24 is probably till next year. So we won't even know if we're actually affecting any change with the projects. But I do agree, City of Greeley is also looking at safe streets and a lot of programs out there with that $10 million we were awarded. So there's a lot of efforts going towards this, but some of us might not even be on council by the time the targets, we can see if we even had any effect on our targets. And that's true. I mean, I think we have to have regional targets because how do we know we're actually making any effect? Even if it's 2 years from now, we got to at least know. But how many people in this room in the last 3 years have had a report of what we set a target last year? How did we do? We don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So on that point, Fort Collins passed Vision Zero in 2023, and I heard tonight that Greeley is looking at a vote on that at the end of the month, which is exciting. But I think that gives us a couple more data points to look at if we go with the more regional numbers in the state, and see if these programs are affecting our local communities and having impact on our numbers here. So I would also support the regional target as well.
Commissioner.
I just feel like transportation planning, air quality planning, all that kind of stuff is like Drew Carey's old whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
Everything's made up, the points don't matter. The number doesn't matter. We're not penalized if we hit the number. Paul, I would ask how much staff time is spent in the calculation of said local number, or we just take a number from the state? We're talking about money that this organization expends in the calculation of a data point that doesn't matter.
I couldn't give you an answer to that tonight. I'd have to do some calculating.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I think we had this conversation. And we still don't have the data for that. So, you know, all of what you're saying is true, but from a practical standpoint, we have more control over the region numbers than the state numbers. So if we did hit a wall, that's a bad pun, but if we had a problem in the region, we're more likely to be able to address it than.
So for example, if we reduce, let's say, 36 fatalities next year, and let's say Denver increased by 36, we wouldn't know if we had any effect without having.
And what could we do in it?
I agree with Commissioner James on this, but it's, I know for the last 30 plus years, the crash data and how the data comes out of the department is always been a struggle, and they've been trying to improve it for 30 years. And they were supposed to put this new program in so all communities could put their crashes in, and it can be real time and it can move a little faster. It's never worked. And until we can get to something where real-time data, they could get in and say, what were the crashes up to January of 25, until soapbox, and I'm sorry, because I shouldn't do this as chair, until
why we made you chair.
Until the state of Colorado takes their own stance of there should be no deaths, zero deaths, and until they get serious and fix this data issue, we are, I'm going to say this with prejudice, pushing a rope. And that's the truth, right? We talk about safety is important. The department's mission is safety is their number one vision, but they can't even fix a data problem that should be fixable in 2024 with all the AI and technology in this world. But it's obviously not serious enough for the state to really help us get that settled. So there, I'm off my soapbox. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with pretty much everything's been said. My question is in the presentation, Michaela mentioned that part of the purpose for having these numbers is for us to keep this in mind as we're making project decisions. And yet, going back to what we're hearing to where we don't really have any real data, I'm not sure how I could do a good job of keeping that in the back of my mind without the data. But one question, very specific, I do support the regional calculation or target, if you will, even though recognizing, as Commissioner James pointed out, it's a pointless number. However, 2023, if I'm reading this chart right, for example, with fatalities in our region, we had 42 fatalities. It's in dark orange. So I'm made to believe that that's a real number. Can we at least know where those 42 fatalities took place? So that as we're thinking in 2025 about projects, hey, here's a spot that we had 10 fatalities or 5 or some disproportionate amount. Do we have access to that information?
And Mayor, expand on that, the fact that not only where did it occur, why did it occur? If we would have installed certain safety features, would it have not occurred?
Correct.
That's the kind of hard data that we need. This is just a number.
That's
We've
right.
already spent more time talking about it than we should.
So I'm gonna, since I'm chair, I'm gonna propose a solution. I've been thinking about this. So if we are serious in the North Front Range about this, is there any way for this council to have, I mean, we pulled this amazing tool together to track ridership and getting people together, right? This whole program. Is there anywhere for our communities to come together and get our crash data coalesced in the North Front Range, build a database that maybe the North Front Range takes on, right, with the TAC, and we build a database that we, as councils, and we go back to our councils and we say, we're going to submit all of our crash data to start being able to do that as a council, that we can show the state that, hey, we're serious about it, where this number then becomes
Relevant. Yeah, substantial.
And timely.
Yes. So I don't think we're gonna, I've been praying for 30 years for the state to do it and it hasn't happened. So can we as a council formulate something, go back to our boards and maybe formulate something that the TAC, that we can make sure that we're reporting on safety? Because then when we do look at a safety project with the programs did it actually improve the system?
Well, if we see a project proposal where, geez, we have a fatality there because the person went off the road and this project proposes installing guardrails, which might keep them on the road, that's proactive. And Johnny, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't know enough about how the data is gathered. I mean, in your former profession, you might, or I'll look at it over here. I know when we make our CIP decisions, Cameron has the presentations on traffic safety. Do we know that if a fatality occurs at the corner of X and Y, do we know why that fatality occurred? Was it a broadside collision? That,
running a red light,
what do you do to proactively prevent that? Yep. That's significant.
I think communities do better than
exercise.
Communities do better.
Because we have a safety report every year, don't we? Yeah.
I think the TAC, I know the TAC is gonna hate me as chair. But I think the TAC, that's something I think the TAC and the North Front Range team can pull together to bring us a solution on how we can do that. Because I think communities do better at this than the state does it. And if the state's not gonna coalesce the data, I think this board has the ability, if safety is going to be important to us, to be able to have some way to pull it together.
And you're not talking about crazy numbers.
No.
I mean, they're reasonable numbers to get those kinds of answers to. If you're talking 42 or
Yeah, but when you're
36 or
talking
30.
about serious injuries, those numbers obviously go up, but still.
But
I think
still,
Well, they track those. Our police reports track serious.
Yes, they do.
And they track, I could tell you right now, there's 2 accidents that I know we're trying to fix in Greeley, and both of them were police chases where they were evading the police and ran off the road, or they went over a roundabout and rolled. I mean, you can't fix that. You can't fix stupid, but you can actually fix locations where it's chronic and habitual safety issues.
And it should be relatively obvious. I don't want to make it sound too simplistic, but this isn't rocket science. If we're identifying specific areas where there's issues and it's not caused because of a police chase, or we understand that it's weather, then is there things that we can do from a weather standpoint? Sitting around this table or on this council, we've probably got one of the smaller PDs, but the information that we get as a council from our PD gives us all of this information already.
Yeah.
I don't know why my council would not want to pass that along into, and we can try to keep it very simple to start with, and then we can expand on it. I would be happy to go back to my council and get the commitment that we're willing to provide that information.
Well, I'm gonna turn around before we go. Is the TAC mad at me? Was my recommendation crazy? I think CDOT would be.
The cities all have databases, maps, all of this data.
So let's show the state how really proactive we are. Okay, never mind.
If we want to talk safety, then let's
Councilman.
go beyond just numbers and
Do something.
do something.
Yes, Councilmember Connor.
So today,
Come on.
Colorado just happened to publish a report on last year's fatality. We were up, we had 12 in Fort Collins, but it goes through and Division 0 Action Plan Annual Report lists the dangerous intersections, the causes of all the accidents. So we've got that data and maybe we get a link.
All right, so let's go back to the discussion. Are we all in agreement? Are we all in agreement? I'm gonna bring this back. Are we all in agreement?
Short meetings with the new chair.
Well, this is something that's been on my mind for years. And I'm now sitting there, I could maybe actually affect change. But are we all, I think, is everybody in agreement that we want to do a regional?
Sure.
No.
Yes.
Let's commit to that tonight. So Michaela's done a really good job and thank you for your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and yeah, Mr. Chair, I think this has been a great discussion because I think it gets at the heart of how do you make this metric that feels like it doesn't do anything, do something. And yeah, as you heard from the TAC members and council members, there's a lot of this that exists at the local level. Sounds like this would just be, it would be an exercise at trying to bring that up to the regional level so that we can flesh out what these numbers actually mean if you adopt the regional standard. Unfortunately, Michaela has just dove right in to the realm of safety, and this is the kind of stuff she's been working on. So I think we'll take all the feedback we got here today and brainstorm on it and come back with some.
And then anybody that's here tonight, talk to your council, see what I don't know what that takes on your councils, but I'll go back to my councils and I'll bring it up at my next meeting. So I think it's something I think we can actually make a difference in.
Great.
And I do
All
just
right.
add one last note real quick. I will say the NPO itself doesn't get penalized for meeting or not meeting their target that we set. However, the state does get penalized if they don't meet their target. I believe if they do not meet their target, they have to pull funding from somewhere else to go towards more safety projects and stuff.
They have to write an action plan because they're pulling safety money out of faster safety this year, trying to backfill it with other. So, but I will tell you right now, they have to write an action plan, get FHWA to agree with their action plan and how they're going to move forward. But they're penalized financially only if they don't build an action plan. I just know too much about that industry. All right, thank you, Michaela. Great work.
Yes.
Sounds like you might get another assignment out of it, so thanks for being here. Okay, Chair's prerogative, 17's pulled. We're going to 18 to stay on track. Just kidding. You want to see how the chair can work?
Agenda is the chair's prerogative.
Item 17. Becky, 10-year plan.
Yes. So I had intended originally to send out a project list with the handouts. However, as those who attended the US 34 Coalition last night heard, the US 34 TAC is refining some of the projects on the list on tiers 2 and 3. And so I wanted to have all of that done and ready to go before I send it out. So I'll be sending that out on January 23rd to everyone. So far we have a draft agenda, introductions, purpose and background. Then we'll have the Region 4 and CDOT process and perspective. So Heather Paddock will be speaking on what this list is to Region 4 and how that looks, and then the process of getting into the statewide list, any of those projects from the two lists on the state list. So then we'll look at the project types and tiers, have a discussion, do voting or consensus on the priorities for the tiers and the different modes. So that is what we're looking at right now. And then if everything goes well at the workshop, this will come back as an action item, just to, not a resolution, but just to say, yes, this is our list for the North Front Range at the February meeting. And then we'll send it to Region 4 for their review, and then incorporation into the statewide one later on. Did have one question that I wanted to ask tonight, and that is, because this will be an open meeting, is there, would the council like a portion of the meeting, say at the beginning or at the end, depending on what you'd like, for public comment? Since members of the public can come. I don't know that any will, but if they did, would we want to have a public comment portion of the meeting?
I don't know, it feels like a workshop and not really a.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
Okay.
The next plan will be acted on here, and they could comment at this.
Right.
All right. Okay. That's all that I have, unless there's questions.
Good job, catch me up.
Well, you're not caught up.
No.
Oh, I'm gonna get there. MMOF, call projects. It's in your packet. Let's move on to item number. Go ahead, Mark. 2024 MMOF, call for projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. So today I'm going to discuss the recommended projects for the 2024 MMOF funding. In terms of what we're going to cover today, a lot of these things were covered in months previously, but I'm going to provide an overview of the program, and I'm going to talk about the project applications as well as the recommendations, and then discuss next steps. So just a reminder, in terms of the goals of this funding program, benefiting seniors by making aging in place more feasible, benefits residents and communities in rural and disproportionately impacted communities, by providing them with more accessible and flexible public transportation services, provides enhanced mobility for persons with disabilities, provides safe routes to school for children, that increases access to and or usage of transit for multi-use facilities, and then reduces emissions of air pollutants, including hazardous air pollutants and greenhouse gases, that contribute to adverse environmental effects, including but not limited to climate change and adverse human health effects. And just to note, the fifth goal there was added by this NFRMPO in 2019 during that call. So in terms of the funding estimates, as you can see here in the table, not a lot of funding available in 24 and 25. There's a significant jump in funds available in 26, 28. Just a reminder, as far as category A, there's about 3.4 million available and about 1.1 million available in category B, with total about 4.5 million for the call. As I mentioned here, the breakdown is category A project and category B projects. Those category A projects were quantifiable GHG reducing projects. Category B was non-quantifiable. So again, as you can see, with that 4.5 million total, most of the funding available in category A, with about 1.1 available in category B. Important to note, as far as the award for sponsor, essentially half of that funding is available. So for category A, the project sponsors can have up to 1.7 million. Category B, about 567,000. So that comes to about $2.2 million available per project sponsor. So the call opened on October 4th. We took action on that on the 3rd. As you can see, a number of things have happened since the call opened, and including a applicant workshop. There was a lot of communication between project sponsors and Northern Range about their project, including the initial project description and giving an overview of what the project is going to look like. The project process then closed, project closed, call for project closed on November 15th. And then a scoring committee was held in early December. And the December meeting, the TAC meeting, the TAC reviewed, went over those projects to get their initial input. And so today, again, it's just here as a discussion item, just to present this, the projects to you this month. Now I'm going to move on to the applications, as well as the recommendations. So as you can see, there was a lot of interest in this program. There was almost about $6.3 million in category A, and about 2.4 in category B. So again, a lot of interest there. A mix of projects. A lot of them are bike and ped focused. There's also some electrification related projects, as well as some transit related projects. So in addition, there are projects from all over the region, as you can see, Fort Collins, Johnstown, Larimer County, Loveland, Severance, Windsor, Eaton, Fort Collins, Greeley, and Love County. So a good representation of the region as far as interest. As you can see here, there's quite a difference as far as what the initial applications were, the requests for those versus the actual funding available. So as you can see, fiscal years 24 through 27, a lot more requests than there was funding available. And then as you can see, there was a total difference there of about 4.2 million. So again, lots of interest, but unfortunately not a lot of funding available for this call. So with that, these are the recommendations that came out of the scoring committee. As you can see, there are 3 projects that are recommended by the TAC. They include the US 34 Transit Sidewalk Connectivity Project, the Foothills Transit Station and Roundabout Project, and the Taft Hill Road Corridor Project. As you can see there, the Taft Hill Road Corridor Project actually ended up getting the full funding amount, as did the US 34 Sidewalk Connectivity Project. And the Foothills Transit Station and Roundabout project received partial funding. And it came to that total amount, which I mentioned earlier, for about $3.4 million. In terms of category B, there were 2 projects recommended, including the Front Range Passenger Rail Fort Collins Loveland Station project and the Weld County On-Demand Transit Program. Again, they both asked for the same amount of money, which is the full amount available for that category, to that $1.1 million total. I just wanted to provide a map showing you where these different projects are located. So as you can see, the first project, Foothills Transit Station and Roundabout, is in Fort Collins. Number 1 there on the map, in the corner, northwest corner. Then there's a Taft Hill Road Corridor project, that's a Larimer County project. Again, that's the label number 2 there. And then there's the US 34 Transit Sidewalk Connectivity Project, and that's a Loveland project. The Front Range Passenger Rail, Fort Collins Loveland Station. Essentially, that station is to be determined, so it could be really anywhere within Fort Collins or Loveland. And then the Weld County On-Demand Transit Program, as you can see there in that gray color. So it includes unincorporated portions of Weld County in the North Front Range MDL boundary, including the towns of Johnstown, Milliken, LaSalle, Timnath, Windsor, and Eden. So again, you can see there's a wide kind of spectrum of projects across the region serving different populations.
Quick question.
Sure.
Number 4, if you scroll back. Those are 2 separate amounts, right? Station for each city?
It's the total funding for, they have it combined essentially. Fort Collins and Loveland submitted the project together.
Okay.
But Fort Collins, the project sponsor.
All right.
Collins has got to get all the money.
That's not how I read it.
Let me just say there was a lot of coordination going on between those 2 communities. So.
Yeah, please, Fort Collins, Loveland, don't take this wrong.
Coming from the greedy guy.
Tricia, after sitting on the Front Range Passenger Rail for 2 years, and the variability of what's going to happen, I do know Loveland and Fort Collins will get a station. That is a guarantee. That has been planned, that's in the SDP, that's there. However, let's say that train doesn't come for 10 years from Longmont. What happens to that money that we just held out? So I'm not saying it's not a good project, guys. That's not what I'm saying. But I just have very little faith that that train from Longmont to Fort Collins is future projection of any time soon. And putting money towards something that there's no guarantees. Go ahead. I know, I'm not trying to be mean.
I'm not responding as if you were. That money is for the station identification study.
So it's a study.
It's a study.
I didn't read it, so okay.
It's not even designed.
Well, no, but
So we could be spending a bunch of money on a study and still not have a train.
Of course. Having the remaining stations identified at a location and be able to put a pin in the map is something that.
I'd do that for about half the cost.
yeah, they might not like you, but you picked it.
You see my point. We don't have it guaranteed,
But nothing's guaranteed, right?
except for the people making the money when they do the studies.
Well,
I'm just saying, I don't disagree with the study. I don't disagree with Front Range Passenger Rail. I sat on it for 2 years and worked hard to get the SDP done and get a vote and worked hard to help them program it. I just really worry about spending money on something we're not even sure that's going to happen. But I'm not going to say no to it. I'm going to vote yes. I just wanted to articulate my concerns. That's all.
But doesn't that kind of fold into any kind of project?
No.
Kind of the phases and you may be 3 years in.
Because you look at Foothills Transit Station, I know that's there. Taft Hill Road Corridor Project, I know that's there. I know you guys have been working on those. Those are live, active projects with design and planning, and it's going to get built because your communities have put those up as priorities. I can't guarantee the other one because that's sort of banking on the state. I never worry about communities in this room. When they say we're gonna do something, there might be a little delay, we have delays, but it usually happens. Since I've been coming to this since 1994. Projects happen. When people say we're gonna do them, projects happen. I don't worry about the other ones, because I just know that people are working towards those. Those are priorities for the communities. And I know the Front Range Passenger Rail is a priority for Fort Collins and Loveland. So, but just moving on now. Chair's gonna move on. Thank you very much.
So still have more to come here. Yeah, the next section I think is gonna be more exciting than my presentation. Each of the project sponsors is gonna come up and do a brief presentation on the project. And so we're gonna start out with,
A calendar.
yeah.
That's Johnny's countdown clock right there.
Start out with the
When it
category.
reaches 8, I turn mean.
And so to start out, we're gonna talk the Loveland project, and so Keith Wakefield's gonna present.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mark. So we're going to talk about the US 34 Transit Sidewalk Connectivity Project. So let's orient ourselves. We're right here between Madison and Denver is over there to the east side. We've got the Super Walmart here on the south, and we have a lot of a business place a little bit further to the north. This is an area where there's a lot of businesses, a lot of residential, a lot of traffic, but we don't have sidewalk on the south side of the road. We have bus stops. We don't have sidewalk connectivity to those bus stops. So it's a prime location for us to go in there and build a multi-use path to bring pedestrians to this area, to allow them to access the businesses, to access the transit, to access the recreational loop here in Melbourne.
Sold.
All right.
Do you want me to go further?
I think it's an awesome project. It's been needed for a long time.
Yeah. Yes, it has. Right here, it kind of outlines the benefits, really connects it to all the bus stops, and you can get all throughout northern Colorado. Connects it to your regional trail network, gets you through all of northern Colorado. There's a disadvantaged community adjacent to this project that will use these trails and these sidewalks to access these resources, access Walmart. And then it is supported by project plans. We've been doing research. We know that there's a sidewalk needed here. So that's all I had. Good?
Good project.
Okay.
Sold. If I was at the stock show, I'd be yelling at numbers.
Okay, so next up, we have the Foothills Transit Station and Roundabout, and I believe Joshua Ma is gonna be speaking about this project.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello. We can hear
Oh,
you.
hi. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, my name's Joshua Ma. I'm the grants administrator with Transport. So this is a project it sounds like everyone's aware of, but we'll be constructing the new Foothills Transit Station roundabout and a roundabout at the adjacent intersection at Overland Trail and West Elizabeth. This station is planned to be the western terminus of the future West Elizabeth BRT system, providing a direct connection between CSU's main and Foothills campuses and a critical transit hub on the west side of town, where none currently exists, allowing for essential multimodal connectivity and improved transit access for the community. We'll also be installing a roundabout at converting the existing east-west stop configuration at the intersection to a single-lane roundabout. We're requesting funds for additional design, electrical, and right-of-way work. This project will improve quality of life in several ways. There's non-existent turnarounds suitable for transit buses currently, requiring that buses are utilizing residential neighborhoods to complete loops. This project will allow the buses to use the roundabout and transit station for safe and appropriate maneuvering and removing buses off of smaller residential streets. Citizens will gain access to improved direct transit service to and from the university area and outlying population clusters, many of which are areas designated as areas of persistent poverty. We'll address environmental concerns, hopefully removing single occupancy vehicles off the roads as they're common between the two campuses. This project will allow for higher frequency and bidirectional service, making it more convenient for drivers to make the switch to transit. The transit station was designed with fleet electrification at the forefront, with 2 en-route charging stations planned to accommodate current routes in the future BRT as we continue to convert our fleet to electric. We're also hoping to address several safety issues, especially at the Overland and West Elizabeth intersection, as there's been a high propensity for roadside accidents. There are also limited and inaccessible sidewalks, leaving pedestrians uncomfortable and finding difficulty navigating crosswalks and cyclists riding in unprotected and narrow bikeways if you've ever biked down Overland. Facilities for both pedestrians and cyclists will be prioritized, providing connections to future sidewalk and existing multi-use trails. And lack of amenities in this area also has transit riders waiting at poorly lit areas with little or no protection from the elements. We'll be outfitting the station with modern amenities with emergency call boxes, upgraded lighting, covered shelters, and bicycle parking. And then finally, this project will allow for improved service planning, realigning current routes 2, 3, 31, and the Foothills Campus Shuttle. These realignments will lead to advantageous service changes, such as more frequent service, fewer loop-style routes, and added capacity. We are hoping to start construction in April of 2026, completing construction in September of 2027, with the transit facility being operational in 2028. Thank you for your time, and I can take any questions.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next, still under category A is the Tap Tail Road Corridor project, and Eric's going to talk about that.
Thank you. So it sounds like the Tap Tail Road Corridor project is one you all are already familiar with, but the Tap Tail Road, or Larimer County Road 19 corridor, is a regionally significant corridor. The overall project on this stretch is identified in the 2050 RTP. Some of the improvements that were identified in that overall project include widening to a full 4-lane arterial roadway, adding the additional through lanes, the turn lanes, the intersection improvements. Not only improves the safety aspect, but it's decreasing congestion, decreasing the emissions as well. For the multimodal components of the project, we have widening sidewalks, a new side path, and a protected bike lane. And those improvements are helping some of our disadvantaged communities in the area. We have the Timber Ridge Mobile Home Park, we have the Springfield low-income housing complex there. We also have the cottages at Harmony, also low-income housing. Helping those folks gain more access to some of our community centers, such as Bolander Elementary School, the Global Village Academy that's there on the corner of Horsetooth and Taft. There's the Spring Creek Park down the way, but most importantly, even to the transport bus stops. So the project is in making these improvements from Horsetooth to Brixton Road, which is just south of Harmony. It's a full partnership between Fort Collins and Larimer County, not just the small portion that you see here for this piece, but we've completed design. We've been ready to go into construction. We've been spending a lot of time trying to fund this project, and the full award that has been recommended to you all would be enough to get us to construction, and that's the most exciting part for us. So with that, any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, just one. Your diagram there looks like you have a protected bike lane in one direction, but it doesn't look like it's protected in the other direction. Is that accurate?
It is. Yeah, so on the west side will be the widened sidewalk section. It'll be on the east side, which it doesn't have any improvements right now, is where we'll see the separation there, the protected bike lane, and the two side being constructed on that northbound side.
strollers and walkers, professional bikers.
Yeah, they're gonna horses. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So now we're gonna move on to category B projects. And the first project will be the project. Dana, are you on the line?
I am. Forgive me, I did not hear you. I apologize. Thanks for, appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight. Our request is for station area planning for Front Range passenger rail, both for the city of Fort Collins and the city of Loveland. We would identify train station locations and select sites for forthcoming passenger rail service, both for Fort Collins and Loveland. 2 of the 9 stations identified in the connecting of the Front Range from Fort Collins to Pueblo. Criteria for station location will include coordination with local transit, multimodal connectivity, and site considerations such as availability, size, configuration, land use, and economic development opportunities, railroad operations, and environmental concerns as well. Equitable, robust community engagement, it will be vital to the process and is included as part of the planning for the station location and selection. Benefits that Front Range Passenger Rail will provide to the area include reduction of single occupancy vehicles and greenhouse gas emissions, investment in infrastructure and economic development, provides mobility options to persons with disabilities, seniors, children, and anyone without a vehicle themselves, increased ridership for multimodal transportation, and ease for community and tourism. The ask was approximately, was 567,661, but the total project cost for both municipalities is around 1,038,000. Next slide, please. Again, 9 stations were originally chosen as part of the prior planning effort. Our slide shows that there are 4 stations that have not been finally selected. Actually, that is only 3, 2 of which are Fort Collins and Loveland. You can see in the timeline that we are in the advanced planning stage that is intended to be locally led. And so this request and award would support Fort Collins and Loveland's selection and inclusion for this information to be included in a ballot measure that's intended for fall of 2026. And with that, I will take any questions.
Right, any questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dana.
And finally, for category B, it's Weld County On-Demand Transit Program. Evan's going to speak on that.
All right, I'm Evan Pinkham. I'm a transportation planner with Weld County. So this is a program that we're currently operating in North Front Range, NPO, in our boundary here, and throughout Weld County and in our Upper Front Range as well. So the current program that we're operating, we have project partners with LaSalle and Johnstown, and then recently added Milliken to the program here last year. So this service, essentially the ask here is to continue our on-demand transit service into beyond 2025, out to about mid-year in 2028. It would be for 3 years of service on this program. And what it is it's a service that operates 1 bus throughout the North Front Range NPO area that would provide rides for individuals that are age 60 and older and people with a disability as well. So the service is free for the rider, which is really great. And yeah, it's a great program. As you can see here in the picture, essentially it's able to help people in wheelchairs. It's a paratransit service, and we've had some really good feedback from residents that have been able to utilize the service. So we've been working with the communities listed here with Eaton, Johnstown, LaSalle, Milliken, Timoth, and Windsor. They'll all be providing some local match in this program as well. So we're excited to have you on board with this. Just ask for your support in funding this program. It's definitely a needed program for our community, and it really has connected a lot of people to different services that they need, whether it's medical or even educational, just going to the grocery store, really these simple trips that we all take for granted, these individuals can utilize the service and take those trips. So, if you want to go to the next one. Essentially, this is a map of, basically the green area is where our service boundary will be. As you can see, some of it goes into Larimer County as well, with the town of Johnstown, town of Windsor, and Timoth, extending their boundaries into Larimer County. But certainly covers a lot of the portion of Guelph County that is in the rural area in the North Front Range. So that's really our target here is looking at our folks that are in the more rural areas outside of the metropolitan Greeley area. So really great things. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to focus on just the MMOF project goals through the program. I feel like our program really does a good job of, touching really most, if not all, of these project goals. So certainly a project that's worthy of this type of funding. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
No, but I have a statement.
I want
May
you
I
to make
a statement?
Yes, you can, because I'm gonna make
I'm
one.
saying, well, all right. I'm saying, yes, Windsor's on that list, and when you brought it to council, we were quite excited too, because we thought it was a program and need that was really needed in our, for our seniors and stuff in the area. So, thank you.
And in 2 years, you will get a phone call from me to use the program, but I'll be in Greeley. I'll move into a rural area.
Yeah, very good. You got to move out, and then we'll come get you.
Commissioner?
That is my only problem with my own proposal is the fact that Evan has seniors listed as 60 plus. And I really have a problem with that. But that aside, it is a phenomenal program that Evan has shepherded to see explosive growth in Weld County. It's truly effective microtransit. Not often you hear me gleam about transit, but this is a time I will.
Very good. Wow, write that one down.
Because it's scalable and affordable.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Okay, so to conclude, in terms of next steps, TAC will be making a recommendation on the projects at their next meeting in January, and then you're scheduled to take action in February. With that, any other general questions or?
Do you have any idea how long it takes for the money to actually flow to the community? Is it months or years?
Is there anyone who would like to answer that question?
I don't manage the program.
So years.
Can answer that. I'm not in contract, so I can get with my program manager down at headquarters, Mike Stone, and probably get a little bit better of a timeline.
I think it rolls pretty quick, though. I think it rolls pretty quick. I think with after our approval, I think it's months. It's not years.
Okay.
To actually move that MMO up money pretty quick.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to council reports. And I don't think we have a transportation commissioner's report. Unless Heather's online and she wants to give us something. All right, so we're moving on to number 20, I-25 Coalition, Mr. James.
It was good. As always, I appreciate people's advocacy for I-25 and their attending that meeting. The usual reports and the usual suspects, but it continues to be a source of advocacy for I-25. I'll skip in the next one and say your new chairperson for the US 34 Coalition is Mayor Julie Klein.
So that gave me goosebumps.
Well, me too.
Do we have a meeting? You had a meeting Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry I missed. I was just a little busy. Is there anything that you want to report that I missed that's important?
That one meets quarterly. We have gone virtual. It's easier to attend. We had great attendance last night, and I appreciate that. Obviously, as we continue to move forward, we're going to find ways that we exist in and around the space of TMO. And I think that projects in cooperation with the city of Greeley and other folks along the 34 corridor is going to make that 34 coalition, as our work at least completes for now on I-25. I have long believed that that kind of focus and passion needs to go around the 34 coalition. And I think that it is well positioned for a time such as now.
And I was told I can't say nothing, but I'm gonna articulate to think about how I-25 came to fruition. Think about how I-25 ended up getting $1.2 billion from 2015.
I seem to recall as a Region 4 Director of Transportation beating the hell out of the mayor of the town of Johnstown.
And in Cecil, I'd walk into his council members, he'd pull his pockets out and say, I have no more. But that's not the way it happened. I think what happened is in 1998, there was an environmental assessment that was put together. And in 2010, the ROD was signed. And in 2010, the reason the ROD was signed is because there was anticipated money for projects. And it didn't have to be the whole corridor, it just had to be, because you get, once you do an environmental document, you get 10 years that, as long as you're showing progress towards the document, you don't have to do a reeval unless you change the plan. So I just want everybody to think, how do we make US 34 as successful? We have a region director that's smarter than the past director and gets a lot more done than the past director. So how do we help her?
Sounds like you need to attend meetings.
On that note, number 22, Front Range Passenger Rail. Council member.
Yeah, there was only a couple action items that the last meeting, and one was we named Chrissy Bright, who was the chief of staff, as the interim director. The other was we passed a budget. It was a pretty lean budget. We have a request in with the governor's office for additional funding, and that would go toward community outreach, negotiations with host railroads, and station area planning. And the governor is asking that we approve a 2-year work plan at this month's board meeting, and they will make a strong effort to secure the requested funding. So that's where we're at right now.
So I do happen to know right before the legislation, was it last year? There was a $68 million, $183 million, and 20% goes to Front Range Passenger Rail. Is that the money you guys are requesting from the governor or through the legislature?
No, this is in addition to the original.
5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is additional.
So it's additional legislative dollars that were given to the board that actually, most of it went into paying for the SDP. So you're asking for more operational dollars from legislatures this year?
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you. All right, with that, who has the executive director's sheets?
Post council. Well,
Oh,
don't you
post
want to
council.
know about?
I crossed you off. I'm
You
sorry.
did, you crossed
Can
me
you tell
off.
me where the Italian food came from?
I will find that out because we're gonna be picking it up here in just a second. So I think it might have been Roma's, but I'll make sure. No, so thank you very much for coming to our wonderful facility here, police department. It actually opened up in August. So just a little over $30 million, but we paid for it without bonding or anything like that. So it's a great facility. So it seems like a lot of people are having to do a lot of new police departments. So, but thank you for coming to ours. Some of the projects though that just are kind of more transportation focused that Windsor's kind of focusing on for 2025. A state highway 392, we're still working on a road widening design. So that's going to come from basically Highland Meadow Parkways to Colorado Boulevard. So we've already widened it when you get off the interchange at I-25. It's already widened a little bit, but now we're trying to design the rest as we go down the hill. We're actually still preliminary design. our construction cost, we're assuming it's gonna be 34 million, but that's not in the budget right now. And so we continue to try for a $25 million raise grant application, and we'll keep putting it in there. One of the things you guys kind of talked about this evening that we are working on is the Safe Streets and Roads for All. So the SS4A planning grant for Vision Zero, we were awarded $120,000, and that's to develop a roadway safety action plan. Windsor has completed a review of the crash data, said it was very timely of what we were just talking about, identified the intersections of interest, performed a 1.5-day roadway safety audits at those intersections. And they're going to update the board next week on this, and then do a follow-up task force meeting to be scheduled around the last week of January to engage with their peer community stakeholders. And we plan to adopt a plan in the spring of 2025 to help get us ready for the SS4 information grants. So, good job, Scott, back there. Yes. I keep pointing at him. So that's one of the things when we were talking, and I don't think TAC would get mad, is because, well, at least we can start throwing the data at you. So lots of good stuff. Broadside accidents, head-on collisions. So we've been looking at that data. Looking at our 7th Street Bridge rehabilitation project. Cost is about 1.6 million. We did get a CDOT bridge grant of about 330,000. We're going to repair areas of stress to replace the bridge decking with a concrete deck and extend the life of the bridge about another 25 years. So that bridge goes over the Cougar River. Also, Crossroads Boulevard and Colorado Boulevard, so just east of the ranch. We're going to relocate utilities, about $850,000 in 2025, because we're going to do a roundabout there. Right now, though, every time we wait, the roundabout costs more money each year, but getting that ready for all of the things that are going on around that area, obviously. Also doing final design, Windsor Lake Road, which is County Road 70 and extension to Colorado 257. It's going to be doing right-of-way acquisitions and throughout 2025. And then also we have great railroad crossing improvements. And that's about $2.2 million. So working on various intersections with the railroad. So take it so you don't bottom out when you go over it very slowly at the controlled speeds. So with that, I think, that's okay. Karen, where did the food come from? Roma's. So there you go.
Awesome.
So down on Main Street, behind McDonald's.
It tasted familiar.
All right, and with that, thank you again for coming to Windsor.
Thank you for hosting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed the food. Meeting, a little bit of meeting info, next month's meeting, agenda topic suggestions, get them into Paul or Becky or whoever. Have your TAC members get them in. Next meeting, council meeting is February 6th and it's hosted by Weld County. So I don't have to go far next month.
Come to Weld County, you'll have beef. That's all I can say.
One thing guaranteed.
Damn good.
All right, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to enter an executive session.